Hello, welcome back to another video. Today's video is a self-care time. And in today's video, I'm just gonna get ready and I wanted to talk about some things that happened. And the reason why this is being included in self-care time is because it's so important for our health and it's something that could have really hindered my health, and I just really want to bring light to that kind of situation. Sometimes self-care is not listening to other people's advice. Sometimes self-care is doing what you believe is right for you and taking care of yourself in the way that you think is the most correct. Let's start this story. I think for you to understand this better, you have to understand how the Portuguese sort of system, healthcare system works. So basically, we have a public healthcare system and a private healthcare system. The public one is controlled and run by the government, and the private one also obviously has to follow guidelines from the government, but you are paying an institution, you are paying it's a business, you know what I mean? You're paying for your appointments, you're paying for everything. Whereas with the public system, even though you have to pay for some appointments and some things, if you go to your GP, you still have to pay a fee of €5 or something. But here it's not 100% free, and if you go to the ER, it's not 100% free, and it's paid by our Social Security. So the taxes that we pay is what pays for our health system. Obviously it has problems and it does have some things that are good, but my experience so far with the public system has not been very good. There's a thing called health center, or health center, which is a clinic. It's always in your address code, so it's relative to your address, and you have a GP, you go and get your appointments, whatever. He's the one who he or she is the one who prescribes your normal checkup, blood work, things like that. The theory is that if you are sick, for example, when I started getting fibromyalgia symptoms, the idea is that you go to your GP and they will then refer you to a specialty. Now this implies that the GP is somebody has your best interests at heart and wants you to really find out what's wrong. Because we're not a very rich country, there is some pressure on doctors to be selective about what kind of things they prescribe and what kind of tests they prescribe and stuff, because it costs the government money. Because when you get a test done, if I'm getting an MRI, I might even go and get it done at a private clinic, but it's the government that pays for it. But you pay a very minimal amount, and then the government pays for the rest to the clinic. So they normally actually prefer you to go and get those tests done at private clinics, because it just makes it run smoother and makes it so there's less people in the hospital getting tests done that can be done somewhere else. And I think that so far is okay. The thing is, in a lot of places, there aren't a lot of specialists. So for example, I had a foot problem 5 or 6 years ago, and my GP sent me to the specialty of orthopedics in the hospital back where I used to live with my parents, in the central hospital. But they didn't have anyone there in the orthopedic section, only for the emergency room. You just go on a wait list, and then the wait list is determined by how serious the condition is. 5 or 6 years ago I had this problem, and I still haven't heard from them. I still haven't been contacted. So that's kind of what our problem is. I feel like the system itself is good, but the thing is we don't have the funds to run it in a effective way. And I feel like there's still some corruption in our government and things like that doesn't allow things to, funds to go in the right places sometimes. There's a lot of problems. I'm just giving you a very brief, rundown. And what happens with rheumatology specifically is that there's about, I think there's maybe 150 doctors working in public hospitals nationwide. So in the whole of Portugal, there's 150 doctors, and there's an estimate amount of patients that is in the millions. Very big thousands, at least. There's obviously not enough doctors to see everyone, And what ends up happening is if you're going through the public system, you're going to be stuck on a waiting list for a very long time. A lot of people don't have the funds to go private, but if you do, you go private. The thing is, if you have a health insurance, you pay a monthly fee and you get, like, depending on how much you pay, I guess, you get different perks. So I have a health insurance because I started getting sick and I knew that there was something wrong, and I did my health insurance really, really quick so that I would still, you know, be able to apply for it. And even though it's like a little bit expensive, not anything near what I think in America they pay, but I pay about just under 50 euros a month. It gives me a sort of budget of 5,000 euros per year that I can spend on appointments, tests. My appointments are a lot cheaper when I go to the private system. So instead of a normal appointment would be like 75, I pay 15, things like that. So you get a lot of perks. And what ends up happening is that a lot of people just end up going through the private system because it's just a lot quicker. And the other problem that we have with the public system is that because there isn't enough, you know, resources, funds, doctors, etc., the ones who are there are obviously frustrated, overworked, and not paid well, which means that they become not very good doctors, in my experience. I'm sure there are really good doctors there because a lot of the doctors who work in the private sector also work in the public sector. I'm sure that they're just like frustrated and they end up treating people not very well. But there's also a lot of doctors, especially in those health clinic, GP clinic kind of scenarios, that are just not very good doctors. What they see is just very basic medicine. They don't see illnesses like mine, and I don't think they treat illnesses like mine very often, or not in the way as in like how a rheumatologist would. I think it's important to have a GP because you have somebody who is your like base doctor who can explain to you what medicine kind of does and if it's safe and if it's not and if it's going to play with each other, and who you can go to for advice, you know, and to connect all the dots between your different specialties, because obviously I see more than one specialty, so I need kind of a halfway point where everything meets. It happens a lot that the GPs in these like little clinics that you have to go to if you want to be treated in the public sector is that they just don't care. They don't want to help you. They think you're exaggerating. They're just like the kinds who don't believe in fibromyalgia or say really weird things like your lactose intolerance is made up because you don't want to go to school. Things like that. That really can scar someone and can really damage people's trust in doctors and can really like damage their health. I used to live somewhere else and I haven't changed my address yet officially, which means that like I don't have a GP here. I'm having a bit of a problem with my prescription because I don't have enough to last me until I see my doctor. Basically, like I'm gonna have to get somebody else to get me a prescription before I, you know, run out and have to go cold turkey. I called the like national like helpline to ask about it, and I like exposed the situation. And the lady was very nice, and she said, all you have to do, because you haven't changed your ID yet, is go to the clinic on the emergency hours. Then all you have to do, like see the doctor, expose the situation, they will help you, and then obviously after, when I've changed my ID, I could sign up with this clinic, and I would be able to have like a GP who would then sign me up on their database, and I could get my prescription online without having to go to the doctor all the time. And I was like, that sounds great. That sounds like a great idea. It sounds like a really easy way to do it. I'm in. I started flaring up on Thursday, and I didn't have enough painkillers to get me through. I did get it through it with like very minimal painkillers, but like, you know, it was painful. Anyway, I thought, you know what, it's a good idea. She said I could go and ask for a prescription. It's a good way to like scope out what the doctors are like and stuff. And I just thought, like, whatever, we'll give it a shot. What's the worst that's gonna happen is they're not gonna listen to me, and I'm basically in the same situation. And at least, like, I know that I'm not to trust that clinic. I didn't have to pay for anything. I got called like straight away pretty much. We didn't have a very long wait. And it's like straight away he wasn't nice at all. But he was relatively young. I think he was like in his 40s. Anyway, so I said I have fibromyalgia and I'm flaring right now. My prescription is running out. I couldn't get an appointment with my doctors, so I just need like my prescription refilled. And he asked me what I take. I barely got through what I take, barely even mentioned the names of the medicine. He interrupted me with like a very brutish, like, no, I don't agree. And I was like, I don't understand what there is to agree with. Like, that's what I'm on. It's not really like an opinion matter, it's a fact. So I didn't say anything, I just kind of went quiet. And he went, I don't agree. I don't think you should be on that. You're too young to be on that. And I was like, okay. That's just poison. And you don't have fibromyalgia. Fibromyalgia is like just a disease that they say you have because they can't be bothered to look for anything else. You just need a doctor who cares and who will look for answers and do the right tests and stuff. And I was like, right, but like I'm in pain now. And he was like, what, all over the body pain? And I was like, yes. And he just went, well, no, because the painkillers you take, it's 10 times stronger than morphine, which it isn't, because otherwise they would, if it was stronger than morphine, I would take morphine. Like, they only give morphine to dying people. It is not stronger than morphine. It gets old people out of the house at like 3 a.m. because they're so hooked on it. I was like, what are you even talking about? But he was so aggressive. The way he was saying it was like so intense that I didn't even like, you ever just like somebody says something so stupid and you're like, you don't even know how to respond because I don't know what to say to that. Like, he didn't even ask how much I take, like what is the amount. Do you know what I mean? Like, 'cause there's different concentrations of the medications and I'm actually on the weakest of all of them. So it's kind of like, what, he didn't even ask. Like, he didn't ask about that. He didn't ask how long I've been on it, who prescribed it, like nothing. He just sort of went off like, nope, not doing that. And then he just kept going on about that thing, like how it was not a diagnosis. It was just like, they just pretend and they're just sort of keeping your brain numb until, because they don't know what else to do and they don't want to look for an answer. And I said, so what should I do then? Because if that's not what I have, then what do I have? How do I find out? And he said, well, you have to get a doctor to do like a complete study of you and like look at all of the aspects and your family history and everything. Then you have to run tests until you find out. And I was like, okay, but what kind of tests? Because he kept saying things that very aggressively, but then when I asked him like direct questions, he was just like, oh no, now's not the time. And I understand that it's an emergency consultation. He has like 10 other people to see. And I get it. Like, I get it. But you can't just tell somebody that their diagnosis is not true, that their doctor is shit, that they are wrong about everything. And the way he said things, like I had no idea what I was taking. He was like, you have no idea what you're taking. It's like a psychotic drug. And then he said, but this medication, what it does is it makes your brain less sensitive to pain. And I said, okay, from what I know, fibromyalgia is a condition where we are more sensitive to pain. So that to me seems logical. But I don't know. I'm not a doctor, so I don't know. And he was like, yes, but like it just slows down your brain and all of this stuff that I had never heard of. He clearly doesn't know what he's talking about. And he's just one of those people who just doesn't believe that fibromyalgia is real. When I was like, okay, I'll bite. I'll humor you and I will ask questions and I will pretend like I'm interested in what you're saying. Then he was all like, oh no, now's not the time. Oh, you know, it has to be with somebody like who cares and who does that. And I was just like, okay. And then I said, so what should I do? And he was like, I will prescribe to you something that isn't going to hurt you and that's better. What turns out it's an anti-inflammatory, which is super, super strong. And I researched it, and it's been forbidden in a lot of countries in Europe because side effects have been known to like damage your heart and do like loads of damage. And I was just kind of like, why am I going to take something else that has really bad side effects, that has been forbidden, and that it's an anti-inflammatory, which we all know fibromyalgia is not an inflammatory condition. Why am I going to change from something that I already know works for me to something that I don't even know, I've never taken, from a doctor I've never seen before, who has not seen one single blood test, who's not seen one single like anything from me, and barely even looked at me the whole appointment. And he was like, stop taking your medication. You have to stop taking it. And I was going to ask, so I should just like not take it anymore from now on? Like as in nothing, like go cold turkey. But he just went, okay, thank you, good, have a good day. When he started like going off about it without even asking any questions, I was like, what the hell? And I was getting really nervous because I get really bad anxiety with doctors sometimes, especially with doctors like that. I was really having to fight crying. I was really proud of myself for not sitting there and just taking it. And I think that it helped me because it's something that I'm working on, like being able to question doctors and to say, yeah, okay, well then, what do you think it is? Like, give me some answers, like concrete evidence, because a lot of doctors will say things like that and they don't actually know the reason why they're saying it. They're just saying it because that's what they think it is. Nobody ever questions them. And that's the thing with like these little clinics, is that they have these doctors there who are super frustrated, who think that they're better than everybody around them because all they ever see is dumb patients who don't know any better. The truth is that what they really feel is inferior. They don't actually see anything of consequence, and when they do, they dismiss it so fast that people just go looking somewhere else. I'm saying really strong things, but I really genuinely believe that they are a stain on medicine. And I don't understand how they let people like that be doctors. And it's just like, that is why the system doesn't work. If they actually had quality control, they would not be still employing that person. You know what I mean? I definitely do need a GP, but we are giving up on the public system. I just don't have it in me. And I know it's very privileged, and I know not everybody has that opportunity to just go through the private sector. That's my self-care time for this month, is going to be looking into GPs that I think I might get along with, just finding a doctor that I can go to for anything that happens where I don't know the specialty. You know what I mean? Like if something new is going on, seeing that doctor who is going to help me, like guide me in the right direction and just support me and help me, and who will like get to know me with time. That's what I'm hoping to find. Wish me luck. Back to the self-care. You are on medication for a year. Sure, I don't take very strong dosages, so if I stopped taking it, I probably wouldn't get really bad withdrawal symptoms, but I would still struggle, and it would still be very irresponsible for me to just stop taking them. I know that people do that because they don't know any better, or they're like sick of the side effects or whatever. It's incredibly irresponsible to tell anyone without knowing them, without knowing their medical history, without knowing anything about them. It's incredibly irresponsible and unprofessional and unethical to tell a patient to just drop their medication. The thing is, like, I know better, and I actually like read about this, and I'm not as dumb as I look, because obviously he thought I was dumb because he thought I had no idea what I was taking. But there are people who don't, and there are people who don't understand the consequences of stuff like that. That sure, a medication might give you secondary side effects, and it might be awful and harmful and difficult to endure, but it would also be difficult after being on a medication for a very long time to just drop it like that, like it's nothing. That will also give you side effects, and that will also make things hard for you, and it's just, there's a responsible way of doing it. It was just so frustrating. And the reason that I really wanted to talk about it is because if a doctor you don't know says something like that to you, don't listen. Consider what they're saying, but don't just do what they say. Think about how, if that makes sense to you or not, and talk about that with your doctor that you already know. And I'm also going to start looking for a neurologist because I really want to listen to their perspective. And I actually have always had this doubt because I feel like they didn't run as many tests on me as they do on as I've seen them run on other people. I don't believe that I have something that isn't fibromyalgia. I just feel like fibro really needs to get looked into more so that stuff like this can stop happening. But I also have my gastroenterologist this month, and I want to talk to her about everything that's happening. When you have situations where you can't change doctors or you don't have access to a different one, fight for yourself because you are worth fighting for. That is what I wanted to talk about today. I'm sorry if this video is very long. I just really wanted to get that out there. Sometimes self-care is different things, and for me right now, self-care is fighting for a doctor to be in my corner. It's fighting for better care for myself and for other people like myself. We'll see what happens, but I will keep you posted. If you care to know what happens next, let me know. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to leave it a like and a comment, and consider subscribing to my channel if you have not done that yet. It would mean a lot to me. Let me know in the comments below similar experiences if you've had them and like how you deal with it. You can also consider becoming a member on Patreon, and you can go and shop on my Etsy store. In my last vlog, I showed a few items that I'm selling on there. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!